Rain tapped against the window glass, muffling the restless hum of New York City below. On the 7th floor of a narrow brick building in Midtown, Elena pressed her hand against upright piano keys. Despite her dedication and talent, the stage still terrified her. Sweaty-palmed, heart-pounding terror. She could perform easily for her potted plants or even the faded cityscape beyond her window. But the idea of an audience froze her. Next door, separated by nothing but a thin wall and disparate dreams, Ryan stared at the half-packed suitcase on his bed. Camera lenses gleamed dully inside, reminders of trips taken and memories now tinged with loss. After a recent breakup, the world felt less wondrous. The spark in his photos faded. He moved to this apartment, hoping New York's energy might stir something inside him, but mostly he felt invisible amid the constant rush, the building itself. With its creaky pipes and quaint quirks, was nearly as old as some of its tenants. That morning, overworked maintenance had mistakenly rerouted a cluster of mail slots so that letters and sometimes pizza coupons dropped into the wrong boxes. Elena, collecting her mail, noticed a small envelope addressed simply to a neighbor. She paused, curiosity piqued, before opening it. Inside was a note, written in sprawling, earnest handwriting. Some days, it feels like everyone in this city is rushing somewhere fabulous, except me. But the view from up here is nice, even if you're just standing still. After a moment's hesitation, Elena reached for a notepad. Her reply was swift and heartfelt. Maybe stillness lets us see things others miss. What do you see from your window? A neighbor. She slipped her note into the mail slot. Her pulse strangely quickened. Down the hall, Ryan discovered it while sorting his own letters. He smiled for the first time in days, running a thumb over the smooth paper, surprised by the warmth that one simple note could deliver. The city outside pressed on, unaware. But within these shared walls, a new story had quietly begun. Ryan sat cross-legged on his hardwood floor, the note from a neighbor perched by his knee. He peered out his window, camera in hand, the city lights blurry but beautiful in the drizzle. He began to scribble. Tonight, the skyline looks like it's dusted in fireflies. I wonder how many other windows hide someone with their own quiet story. What sight inspires you to play? He hesitated over his words, feeling oddly vulnerable, then folded the page and slipped it through the slot. A few doors away, Elena checked her mailbox with anticipation the next afternoon. Her breath caught as she spotted the envelope. Returning to her apartment, she read Ryan's words aloud, as if savoring them might make her braver. She pressed her fingers to the piano and tried to conjure those luminous fireflies in her mind. Her hands danced over the keys, hesitant at first, then bolder, the music tinged with the pulse of city light. That evening, she responded, I play best when it rains. Somehow, the city's noise drowns out my nerves and lets the melodies through. Sometimes, I pretend the world outside is listening, but doesn't know it's me. The next day, their conversation continued, letters crisscrossing through the slot. Favorite coffee shops, dreams of places far-flung, secret anxieties neither had ever said aloud. Ryan dared to invite more. If you could perform anywhere, with no fear, where would it be? Elena smiled at the question's gentleness. She wrote back, Central Park at twilight, when the world softens around the edges. You? Sunrise in Iceland, Ryan replied, camera in hand, photographing something only I can see. Days became a week, each note a new piece of a quietly unfurling friendship. Neither guessed that behind the thin apartment walls, inspiration had taken root. Both felt a barely contained ache for someone they'd never seen and weren't sure they'd ever dare to meet. The following week was filled with a restless, electric energy. Elena found herself hurrying home, her fingers brushing the worn brass of the mail slot before dropping her keys. Each exchange with her mysterious neighbor had unearthed something inside her. Courage, longing, hope she hadn't realized was still alive. One rainy Thursday, Ryan's note arrived later than usual. Elena stood at her window, chewing her lip, when finally she heard the faint click of paper sliding into the slot. Her heart fluttered. The letter read, "Today I stood on the roof, camera ready, but ended up just sitting and listening to the city breathe. I wondered if you hear music in the hum of taxis and footsteps. What does the world sound like to you?" Elena smiled, warmed by the sincerity. She wrote back, "Sometimes the city sounds like an orchestra tuning up, everyone waiting for their cue. Other times, my music drowns out the chaos, and it's just me and the notes. Can I ask, did you ever feel lost after something ended?" Ryan's reply was slower this time. He confessed, for the first time in months, about his breakup. Photography felt empty after Laura left. At first, everything I shot looked hollow, like the city had swallowed its secrets. But these letters, they make me wonder if new things are about to begin. Elena hesitated over her response, feeling their connection shift, deepen. She wrote, "I once froze during a recital, hands locked above the piano, before everyone. I ran off stage and never tried again. But lately your words make me want to try. Does that sound crazy?" The next afternoon, Ryan's answer was immediate, almost urgent. "Sometimes crazy means you're alive. If you play again, I hope you let the whole city listen, maybe even me." Elena pressed his note to her heart, blinking back tears. In this city of millions, two people began to quietly change, tethered by the simple bravery of written words. As summer pressed closer, so did their anticipation. Elena found herself lingering at her apartment door, listening for the soft thud of paper landing by her entryway. In the early evenings, she watched the sky warm to gold, heart hammering as she practiced, imagining Ryan somehow listening through the city's din. One Friday, as thunder rumbled overhead, Ryan sent a small gift through the slot. Elena jumped when she heard the gentle clink. A flash drive, a short message. "Some stormy afternoons, I like to watch the city from behind my lens. I recorded some sounds this week from rooftops and fire escapes. Thought you might find your inspiration here." Elena hurried to her laptop. Rain mingled with snippets of city life played through her headphones. Children laughing, faraway sirens, the swoosh of taxis, and, her breath caught, a faint melody, almost like piano. Elena responded the next morning, tucking her fear into the fold of her letter. "I wrote and played a new song after listening to your sounds. My first in years. If you want, I could record it for you. Only you." Ryan's reply was emboldened by hope. "Please do. I'd consider it an honor." That evening, Elena sat at her piano, hands trembling. She played through her nerves, imagination filled with the light of his encouragement. She slipped a USB with her recording and a note into the slot. Sometimes a kind stranger is what you need to remember yourself. Ryan listened in the dim light of his studio, utterly entranced by the trembling, heartfelt melody. He replied, "I played your music on repeat tonight. The city outside fell away. You made me feel something I'd thought I'd forgotten. Thank you." Their letters grew longer, more tender. Elena wrote about her dreams, small, daily wishes. Ryan confessed his fear of beginning new journeys. Their anonymity began to ache. Elena traced the edge of his last envelope, daring herself to ask what now felt inevitable. "Have you ever wondered what it would be like to meet in person?" It rained again the next day, soft against the city's stone. Elena paced her apartment, nerves raw from her last question, half dreading, half hoping for Ryan's answer. She played notes at the piano just to soothe her anxiety, each sound echoing her unspoken longing. When the letter arrived, her hands trembled as she opened it. Ryan's handwriting was as careful as ever. "I have wondered every day since your first note. But I'm scared. What if the magic fades when we meet? But I also think, what if it doesn't?" Elena pressed the page to her chest. She wrote back bravely. "Sometimes fear means it matters. Maybe we could start small. We could meet somewhere we both love. Not knowing quite who to look for, but knowing you'll be there. Would you try?" By evening, Elena found Ryan's answer. "Yes. Central Park by the old stone bridge at sunset? I'll have my camera. And you? Maybe a single music sheet?" A thrill, hope mixed with dread, skipped through her chest. She agreed. The next few days were full of nervous energy. Elena chose her favorite sheet music, folding it delicately. Ryan polished his camera lens, practicing casual smiles in his mirror. The morning of the meeting, thunderstorms cleared into a sky striped with indigo and gold. As evening fell, Elena stepped onto the street, heart loud in her chest. The city felt suspended, as if holding its breath right along with her. In Central Park, the stone bridge glowed in the warm twilight. Elena clutched her music, eyes searching the crowd for someone who looked as nervous and hopeful as she felt. Just a few yards away, behind the bridge's arch, Ryan scanned the faces for a musician with a secret. Neither knew they were standing just steps apart, the city watching quietly, waiting for the moment that would change everything. The evening stirred with anxious anticipation. Elena's eyes darted over faces, couples laughing, joggers rushing by, tourists snapping photos. Her sheet music crinkled slightly beneath her fingers. She paused at the edge of the bridge, the notes of her heart almost louder than the din of the city. Ryan, a few steps away under a cluster of sycamore trees, fingered the camera strap slung at his neck. He caught sight of a woman with dark hair, her hands curled protectively around a folded page. Was it her? Every ounce of hope inside him said yes, but nerves kept his feet rooted for a moment longer. A little boy darted between them, chasing a blue balloon. The distraction jolted Ryan into motion. He stepped onto the bridge, searching the small crowd. Elena looked up, meeting his eyes. Blue, kind, uncertain, and for a second, time froze. Their conversation began hesitantly, as if the city around them had hushed in respect. "Are you—" Ryan started, unable to finish. Elena nodded, pressing her music sheet toward him. "Do you have the camera?" He held it up, hands oddly shaky. Their small smiles, relief laced with nerves, stretched wider. For a few moments, words failed them. Then Elena broke the silence. "I almost didn't come. I was afraid we'd ruin what we had." Ryan's response was soft, honest. "I thought the same thing. But then I realized I'd always wonder if we were as real as those letters." A gentle breeze ruffled the page between them. Elena tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Maybe we could sit and talk a while, just here by the bridge?" He nodded, and they sat side by side on the stone, knees nearly touching. The conversation that followed was a careful blend of laughter and confessions. It wasn't always easy. Some pauses stretched long and uncertain. But there was comfort, too, in being finally, truly seen. As the sky grew dusky, Ryan asked, "Would you play for me? Just a little?" Elena smiled, shy but almost fearless now. "Only if you promise to take my picture." The deal was struck, and as her fingers mined the keys on her leg, Ryan snapped the moment, a crisp memory suspended, the first brush of something new and achingly real. Over the next week, their worlds shifted in small, wondrous ways. What began as cautious meetings in Central Park turned into longer walks, punctuated with laughter and the flicker of shy glances. Sometimes, Elena would bring a tiny portable keyboard, and Ryan his well-worn camera. People passing by must have thought them old friends. Only they knew how new, delicate, and precious everything felt. On a particularly bright Sunday, Ryan snapped a photo of Elena mid-laugh, sunlight winking off her hair. He showed it to her, watching her cheeks flush with uncertainty and delight. "You make moments beautiful just by being in them," he said, surprising himself with his boldness. Elena brushed his arm, her eyes softening. "You say that about city skylines, not people." "Maybe I was wrong about that," Ryan replied, voice dropping. The truth lingered between them. For a moment, Elena hesitated, searching his face with a new vulnerability. But then she smiled, brave. Later that afternoon, as the city's noise ebbed behind them, they found a quiet bench. Their conversation slowed, giving way to closeness. Elena spoke about her childhood, practicing piano late at night to fill the silence. Ryan opened up about his travels and the ache of searching for something to come home to. They still wrote letters, now exchanged in person, their correspondence a mixture of witty sketches, song lyrics, and snippets of poetry. One evening, as rain swept in, Ryan handed Elena a letter that read, "If home is a person, could it be someone you once only knew through paper and ink?" Elena's reply was written simply on the back of a sheet of music. "Maybe. Sometimes it takes getting lost in a big city to find out who's listening." As nights grew longer, Elena and Ryan slowly came to understand that what had begun as a lifeline between mail slots was now something neither wanted to let go. Still, always at the edges, a shadow of doubt lingered. Would their connection survive once the magic of anonymity truly faded? Or would it demand that they risk even more to build a life outside the boundaries of letters and chance encounters. Autumn crept into the city, painting the trees 100 shades of gold and fire. Elena and Ryan's world grew warmer, even as the wind turned crisp. Their meetings became nearly daily, a coffee here, a rooftop sunset there, but a peculiar tension simmered beneath the surface. Both sensed change brimming, waiting to spill over. One late afternoon, Ryan invited Elena onto the building's rooftop. They sat beneath a canopy of string lights, the skyline blazing behind them. Ryan fiddled with his camera, words caught behind pursed lips. Elena played bits of her latest composition on the portable keyboard, letting the notes fill the chilly air. At last, Ryan broke the silence. "I've been offered an assignment in Italy. 3 months, the kind of thing I used to dream about before you." He looked at her, hopeful and scared all at once. "I want to go, but I don't want to lose what we have. What do I do?" Elena's throat tightened. She tried to hide it with a smile, but her hands trembled. "I want you to go, Ryan," she said, voice gentle but fraught. "That's who you are. But I'm terrified. What if New York is just a place we hide in together? What if distance—" He cut her off softly. "We didn't even know we were neighbors before. The city kept us apart and somehow brought us together. Do you think we could make it work if we try?" Elena blinked back the sting of tears. "I think we owe it to ourselves to try. And maybe Italy will give me a reason to finally play in front of a real audience, not just my neighbor." They clasped hands, foreheads nearly touching, evening light glinting in their eyes. "Write to me?" Ryan whispered. "Every day," Elena promised. They both laughed, softly bittersweet. The possibility of goodbye hung between them, but so did hope. Maybe love that started in secret could survive anything. As city lights flickered on, mapping out their dreams in the dark. Neither knew quite what would happen next, but for the first time, both went to sleep, feeling fearless, ready to risk their hearts beyond the comfort of shared walls and nightly letters. The airport was awash in muted morning light when Elena and Ryan met for their parting. They clung to each other near the security gate, bags heavy on Ryan's shoulder and heavier still in both their hearts. "I've never written from Italy before," Ryan murmured, attempting a crooked grin to downplay the ache in his chest. "Guess you'll have to tell me how the mail slots work when I'm thousands of miles away." Elena smiled, tears hovering on her lashes. "Promise to write me the first night. If you forget, I'll know." He brushed his thumb across her cheek, memorizing every detail, from the shape of her hands to the way she steadied herself when nervous. Not a chance. They shared one last kiss, full of everything unspoken, the hope and fear mingling between them, and then Ryan disappeared behind the lines, swept away by the thrum of travel and possibility. The following weeks tumbled forward in a rush of letters crisscrossing the Atlantic. Ryan sent Polaroids and stories from Tuscan streets or stormy Venetian alleys. Elena replied, her words accompanied by photos of New York sunsets and scraps of new scores. Each message was a lifeline, their love gently tested by distance. Yet challenges crept in. Elena's stage fright surged as she prepared for her first true performance in years. An intimate recital at a small Soho lounge. Ryan's letters urged her on, but she longed for his presence. Some nights loneliness pulsed so sharply She could almost hear his laughter in the empty rooms. Ryan, too, grappled with doubt. He captured Italy's wonders, yet every breathtaking view held a shadow. Sometimes the city crowds pressed too close, and despite the beauty, he felt more alone than ever. But amid the ache, their love adapted, finding new ways to survive. Elena recorded a video of herself playing the composition she'd once shared through her door. Now fuller, freer, sent via email to Ryan's glowing praise. Ryan mailed home a small leather-bound notebook, every page filled with moments he wished he could have whispered directly into her ear. Their separate worlds grew richer, even as their hearts ached to reunite. The end of Ryan's assignment approached, and anticipation built with every exchanged letter. Would they find their spark unchanged, or discover that distance had altered the notes of their song? As their reunion neared, both prepared for the one moment that could decide everything. The moment they would face each other, not as anonymous neighbors, but as the truest versions of themselves, shaped by longing and love. The day of Ryan's return dawned crisp and brilliant, the city wrapped in late autumn's amber light. Elena stood at the window, hands trembling not with fear, but with anticipation. The kind she'd once reserved for secret letters folded through a mail slot. The last page of Ryan's notebook rested on her piano, waiting for his real voice to fill the spaces between her music. Their plan was simple. No grand gestures, only two people meeting in the place where it all began. Elena walked to Central Park, sheet music tucked under her arm and hope warring with doubt in her chest. Ryan emerged from a yellow taxi, suitcase rolling behind him. He wore a grin she knew better than her own reflection. The moment he spotted Elena on the stone bridge, everything else, jet lag, nerves, the ache of distance, fell away. She met his gaze, tears sparkling but unshed. He set down his bag and without a word, pulled her into a fierce, laughing, utterly relieved embrace. All of Central Park seemed to hold its breath as their worlds collided again. They sat together on the same bench, hands entwined. Ryan spoke first, his voice trembling with raw honesty. I thought I might lose you to time zones and silence, but every letter felt like you were sitting just beside me. Elena smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. Your words made me brave. I played my recital. The room was small, but I felt you there, cheering for me. I think I finally played for myself, too. Their next moments were filled with soft laughter, gentle teasing, and the quiet comfort of closeness regained. Ryan pulled a Polaroid photo from his pocket, one he'd taken in Venice, empty but for a single red umbrella. For you, he whispered, a reminder of how the world looks when you're missing someone. Elena pressed the photo to her heart. Next time, we'll fill it together. Evenings stretched longer, their letters exchanged not by mail slot, but across kitchen tables and pillow forts built on lazy Sundays. Elena practiced with the windows wide, no longer hiding her music from the world. Ryan's photos blossomed with new color and joy, a city and a heart both found. Every so often, as the city roared outside and their hands brushed over old paper and new dreams, they'd laugh at just how close they had always been. How fate had bent a few letters and changed two lives across the skyline. But the greatest letter, they realized, was the one they'd started writing together. A story whose ending would be theirs to decide. And above the city, brighter than the lights, truer than the constant urgent rush, love at last was not a missed connection, but a duet in perfect time.